Welcome. It is my pleasure to be the moderator for the webinar today. I am Asha Nazira, a first-year student doing my degree in biology from UiTM campus Kuala Pilah. I am also a student of ELC590 in this semester. I am super excited to have you all here, excited about the amazing session that we're going to have after this. We will also appreciate you taking time off your busy schedule to join us in this webinar today. First of all, joining us today is an outstanding and amazing visionary. And when I say amazing, I mean it. He is a knowledgeable and also an expert on this topic. Sir Elias Sulaiman Mohandas is a senior lecturer at University Technology Mara, Shah Alam, with 12 years of lecturing and research experience in English, English for specific purposes, educational technology, critical thinking, and professional and intercultural communication. Sir Elias Sulaiman Mohandas graduated from University Technology Mara with first-class honours Bachelor of Education in TESOL. He received his master degree in Applied Linguistics from University Putra Malaysia in 2012. Dear beloved audience, just a little housekeeping matter before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box. However, it would be great if you can ask your questions directly to the speaker. We will also have time for Q&A session and photo session with our guest speaker at the end of our session. And lastly, we would like you to fill out the Google form using the link provided in the chat box. In the meantime, while the presentation is going on, please keep your microphone muted. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Sir Elias to start his session. All right, Sir Elias, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Asha Nazira. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good afternoon. I bid to all of you. First and foremost, I would like to thank Akademi Pengajian Bahasa UiTM Negeri Sembilan, ya, as well as the lecturers, students, joining this session today. Thank you so much for inviting me, right? And thank you so much for the introduction from our moderator. Well, I'm not an expert actually. Yeah, I'm just like anyone else. I suppose you also at your faculty, at your campus, you have many experts in oral presentations or public speaking, but it so happens that perhaps, in fact, I'm not going to say that whatever that I'm about to deliver today is going to be something that is really going to make you to be a good presenter eventually, but it will be something based on my experience, yeah, something that I have experienced before, things that I would like to share with our dear students. Hopefully that this helps to first for you to understand on how to go about doing your presentation, on how to be a good speaker, a good public speaker. And second, if let's say you are already one, perhaps this can help you to enhance, to become better, inshallah. Yeah. So my name is Elias. All right. As mentioned by our moderator just now, I'm a senior lecturer at Akademi Pengajian Bahasa, UiTM Shah Alam. All right. But students, they address me or they call me Mr. E. Yeah, so you can call me Mr. E. So from one word which consists of 6 letters, I shorten it up to only one letter je lah, which is E. Itu pun sometimes some students akan terpanggil saya Mr. F lah, Mr. all kind of alphabets lah, as long as they have one alphabet with them, one letter tu dipanggil je saya. And at the same time, ada juga yang panggil saya madam pun ada juga, ya. Itulah, sometimes I like to use this as a joke with my friends. Only in UiTM, perhaps lah, perhaps not, maybe not in UiTM, but only in public university or with our university students. your gender can change, from the beginning of your lesson, and you begin as male, but suddenly you become female towards the end. Yeah, so first panggil sir, then later it becomes madam pula. All right, so allow me to share with you my slides. Just to inform you, hold on, yeah. Okay. Okay, so if you have questions you like to ask, or either you want to ask me verbally, I'm all okay, or you like to use the chat box, by all means, yeah, you can just use the chat box to ask me questions. But we'll be having Q&A session as well. I will be delighted to address, but I'm not saying that I may be answering all questions. Well, that depends on our time, as well as whether or not I have the replies that you may want to have for your questions. Yeah. Okay. And number two, I would like to inform that whatever points that I have here, basically these are the points that that you can actually Google. You can just find these points available online. Yeah. Because nowadays information is just within your fingertips. Yeah? If you want to know anything and everything about how to deliver a presentation effectively, what you can do is you can just simply go and search. All right. Even the word Google has now become a verb now. We use the word now. You can Google it. You can Google the information. Also, at the same time, you may also find similarities in terms of the points that I have here with the ones provided by your class lecturers, particularly those who are actually taking ELC590 this semester, or maybe the semesters before, because I'm not really sure about the audience. I reckon that most of you are the ones taking ELC590 this semester. But perhaps the only difference that I may have is the way I deliver these points based on my experience. Yeah, because ever since I joined UITM, and even prior to that, I was with the affiliate college of UITM, College Bersekutu UITM. I was there for 4 years. And even prior to that one, I was with, I was a student doing my master, doing my degree, my bachelor. I have involved in many, events, occasions that required me to deliver a speech or become an MC, so on and so forth. So when we talk about delivering something in front of an audience, we are talking about it can be just as simple as maybe you're pitching your product, or perhaps it's just you are giving a short verbal report, to maybe to your mother can sometimes your parents, they like to ask you, where have you been, what did you do? So anything that involves your verbal parts, or the communication part, which requires you to deliver something in front of a group of people, we are actually talking about how to deliver effective presentation skills. We're talking about your communication skills. We're referring to your presentation skills. Yeah. So I gathered every single thing, the tips, perhaps I can share with our dear students today. Hopefully that helps you. I'm not really sure. I'm pretty sure that you are in the midst of preparing for your third assessment, second assessment, I cannot remember, persuasive speech, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe this can also help you out, yeah, on how to organize your speech, and also hopefully on how to present well for your assessment. And beyond than this, perhaps later on, for final year students, degree students, perhaps you have presentations, other presentations as well. Maybe you'll be presenting some of the faculty, some of the programs. You're required to present your your FYP. So maybe you can actually use this. All right. Whatever that you're going to get out of this sharing session, inshallah, today, by the end of today, you can apply this, hopefully, all right, so that you can become better, right, inshallah. All right, so we'll start with the first one, what I plan to talk about. Yeah, so we'll be looking at two things. I'm not going to go in details every aspect. susah lah sebab otherwise nanti we need more than 1 hour to look into this, yeah, or maybe 2 hours. I also don't know. Okay, otherwise it becomes. Imagine you are learning this, throughout the span of that 14 weeks in a semester, and I am going to compress every single thing within 1 to 1.5 hours. So I'm pretty sure, it's impossible, but at the same time, it's doable in a sense that I look at the important parts. All right, what are the things that I feel they're very important that I would like to emphasize on. So we'll be looking at those things, yeah. Bukan semualah kita cover, insyaAllah. So the rest yang bit and pieces yang tak cover today, you can just refer back to your lecture notes, given by your class lecturers. All right, so there are two things that I'll be looking at today, or I'll be talking about. The first one is on speech writing, and next is on the delivery of the speech. Yeah, so we'll be looking at these two things. We'll start first with the speech writing. Okay, and I like to begin. I love to begin. My sharing session, my presentation with a quote. Right, this is from William Penn. So William Penn is basically he's the founder of the state of Pennsylvania. Yeah? So that's why the name of the state actually was taken from his surname, or his family's name, which is Penn. And this is what he has to say about presentation, about giving a speech, about giving a speech in public. All right. So this is what he has to say. Speak properly and in as few words as you can, but always plainly, for the end of speech is not ostentation, but to be understood. So we are not here. We are not here to really look into this quote, but more to try to understand what he has to say here. So he said that at the end of the day, your speech is not about ostentation. That means you're not there to impress anyone. As much as we feel that could be one of many reasons as to why we are delivering a speech, and that is to impress someone, right? And at this point, I can say that in some ways, I'm trying to impress you as well, right? Perhaps, and anyone else for that matter. So we may have that in us, but at the end of the day, we have to understand one thing. What is basically the purpose of us delivering this speech? So that is why one of the key element in drafting your speech is to ask yourself, what would be the purpose of that speech? All right. So in the case of ELC590, I must say that we'll be looking previously when I taught this course last semester. I'm pretty sure some of your lecturers are very familiar with this if you've been teaching this code. We have presentation, speech presentation for informative, that means informative speech, and we also have pitching, and also at the same time persuasive speech. Yeah, so we're looking at this. So if let's say your purpose is to inform a person, so at the end of the day, your speech is all about disseminating information or sharing information with your audience. Whether or not they have understood well the gist, the reason why you're standing in front of them delivering that speech. So basically, it goes back to that question: what is the purpose of you doing this, and whether or not you have achieved your objective when you deliver your speech. So it's not about about impressing a person. It's not about trying to make an impression. It's not about anything else. At the end of the day, we go back to the very same question: what is basically you are doing here? Are you telling us something? Are you trying to persuade us? Making us to fall into your idea, stuff like that. Those are the questions. Yeah. Okay. So enough with that. We'll start with the brainstorming topic. I'm pretty sure that I hope by now, semua dah ada topik lah for your ELC 590 persuasive speech. But if let's say in future, you are asked to deliver a speech. Now, when someone asks you to deliver something, or when someone asks you to give a speech, or when someone asks you to have like what I'm having right now, that is to have like a sharing session, to present something, you may want to ask them for what reason, for what purpose, what would be the objective of that session. All right. So that would be asking the purpose, so that, at least, you're doing this for a reason. Next is for you to come up with a topic, and hopefully you can have a topic that has to do very much relevant to the given purpose or reason. All right. So coming back to the story of your, oral presentation, for example, you have your assessment coming, inshallah, which is persuasive speech. So for your persuasive speech is basically your purpose, your objective. That is the reason why you're doing that speech. But now you have to come up with a topic in order for you to meet that objective. And that is, as you're doing your speech, you can actually show, or you can actually portray your persuasive skills. You're persuading your audience. Yeah, you're trying to persuade your audience. So how to actually brainstorm a topic? Macam mana kita nak brainstorm topic tu? Okay, so how are we going to do it? Actually, there are many ways that you can actually, that you can actually employ in order for you to brainstorm the topic. We'll start off with the internet search. I think nowadays every student is very much into searching things online. Yeah, and given the current circumstance, or the current situation where we are actually conducting our classes online, so I guess internet search has become the mean of finding information, or perhaps search for anything, all right, including brainstorming your topic. And in fact, I myself, whenever even if, let's say, I'm giving this or I'm doing this sharing session just for it has nothing to do with any assessments. Sometimes people like to ask, hey, Mr. E, someone asked me to deliver a speech lah, this lah. How can I come up with? How can I brainstorm the topic? Where can I actually get? So I would suggest internet search. Internet search. Perhaps when you search for the internet, that you search for the topic on the internet, you will come across few interesting topics. Yeah, you may have come across those topics before, but by searching online, you'll bump into them again, and that can help you, or that can actually trigger you to come up with the topic. Internet search is the easiest way out. Yeah, but at the same time, nanti later kita tengok lah how to. We're not going to look in details on how to come up with this killer topic pula, kan? Because our topic today is on presentation. But maybe I can share a few things lah. All right. So internet search is the first thing, all right? The first way lah for you to search for your topic or brainstorm your topic. Next is your interest. Now, as much as you can search things online, at the end of the day, when you want to deliver something, it has to be something that you are comfortable with, all right? Now, you can be adventurous, and that is to explore new topics, to explore new content. Because you may not be the expert, but you can do some reading, you can dig up information, you can do some small scale research, all right, to get more information, to get more details on the given topic. You can do that if you want to, all right? But it would be best if, let's say, you have been dealing with that matter for a very long time. Yeah, for a very long time, you're very comfortable with it. I think it's best if you have to, if let's say you are at the brainstorming stage, to brainstorm the topic of your speech, you may also want to consider to pick a topic that is of your interest. You may want to do that. Now, why? Now, let me just give you an example. If, let's say, I am a yoga practitioner, all right? So I practice yoga every day. Well, this is just an example, tengok badan pun tahu bukan yoga practitioner, kan? Tapi I'm just letting you like this example. Let's say I practice yoga every day lah. And I noticed that, when I practice yoga, it helps me a lot, especially health-wise, so because I often hear my friends say that, oh, sometimes, I have trouble breathing, I know for sure, if let's say you practice yoga, it helps you with the breathing techniques ke? Bukan, no. I'm not sure if it helps with that, tapi more like I think it posture lah, alright. If let's say lah sakit tulang belakang, sakit belakang contohnya, so it helps you with that, postures and whatnot. Okay, so I know that practicing yoga, I mean, it has tons of benefits, health benefits, maybe I want to persuade my friend or my classmates to practice yoga. I've been practicing yoga for quite some time, maybe more than 10 years. So that is something that I've been doing, I've been practicing, and I think I am very much comfortable of choosing this topic for my speech. So this is one of many ways that you can actually use in order for you to brainstorm a topic, and that is to find a topic of your interest. If let's say you are good in apa lagi, it can also be your hobbies, things that you do your pastimes. So those are the things, things that you've been doing with, you've been dealing with for quite some time. So maybe you can use that as your topic. Next is something that you saw. Okay, perhaps you came across this something on the notice board, contohnya, or something dekat billboard. So you said that this is a very good topic. Why not I talk about this? Why not? So you may not be the expert, you may not be the expert, but you can search more information. You can ask around. You can do some like a short interview with the experts to get more information, to get more details on the topic. Like if I'm mistaken, I think about a couple of semesters ago, a student talked about cryptozoology. If I'm mistaken, cryptozoology. I used that topic back in the days, when I did my TESOL to present a speech, a public speaking speech. So I think about 2 semesters or 3 semesters ago, one of my students, she came to me. She said that she wanted to do this cryptozoology. So I asked her, why did you choose this topic? And she said that she came across the word cryptozoology in a book. And she's been like, at that point, she was like wondering what cryptozoology is all about. And then she went to find out the definition, the meaning. Somehow that aroused her interest in order to explore more about cryptozoological animals. So she wanted to do that, to use that as her topic. I think masa tu informative speech. So I told her, go ahead. All right. So it's not, you are not actually, a zoologist, or you're not an expert about ancient animals ke, ataupun other than ancient, because sometimes can also be magical animals ke, all right. You're not an expert in that, but for sure, if let's say you can find more information, you can get more details about it, that would be good. Because when we talk about brainstorming topic, another thing that you have to have in mind, these are the ways, but what you need to have in mind is how is your topic can be something that can help you the interest, to arouse the interest of your audience. You're going to persuade them. You're not going to persuade them about the topic, but you're going to persuade them to listen to your speech. All right. So choosing the right topic can actually help you to gain interest or the attention of your audience. So sometimes, although some people say that tak apalah, janji konten bagus, konten menyelah, topic it's okay, put aside. Not necessarily. I always believe that first impression comes from your topic. Right? So be mindful when you want to choose your topic for your speech, and make sure that it has some sort of like something, like the something that can really arouse the interest of your audience lah, in that sense, yeah. Or maybe something that you experienced. So you have experienced this before. Maybe you have experienced this before. Pernah melalui something lah, a situation, you know, or maybe you have watched it before in a movie. Contohnya, like for example, recently you went to watch this Mat Kilau, and then suddenly you see that, it's interesting to talk about, you know, how practicing Malay martial art, silat, for instance. Or maybe when you watch that movie and then you saw dia punya traditional weapons, you know, the Malays used to have with them lah during silat dan sebagainya, talk about keris, for example. So you like to talk about, or you like to persuade on it, right? How important it is for us to, you know, to really talk about our heritage, you know, preserve our heritage, so on and so forth. So a lot of things can actually help you to brainstorm your topic. Okay, sometimes, you know, while driving pun tiba-tiba, this is a very good topic. While doing something else, why not I talk about this? So it can help you. And or something that you read something that you read before, maybe in a newspaper, in a book, like in the case of my students. So she read something in a book, and then there's this word cryptozoology, and then she wanted to know more about it, and that was when she decided to talk about this for her informative speech. So it can be anything. All right, so this is how you can brainstorm your topic. If let's say you are still in the midst of finding the right topic for your speech. So, and there are many other ways as well. Trust me, there are many other ways. And the next is for you to, you know, but of course, at the end of the day, I would highly advise you to go with a topic that you are comfortable with. At the end of the day, you know, when let's say students, they're still finding the topic, they're not sure. So I ask them, what would be your, what are the things that you like to do? What are the things that you do normally, you know, things that is a routine to you. So when they mention a few things, then I say, why not you explore on this part? So talk about something that you are familiar with, talk about something that you are comfortable with, yeah? Because at the end of the day, there are many other things that you are going to consider for your speech. So deciding a topic is just small parts of the whole concept of delivering a speech, all right, or a presentation. So you cannot focus too much on deciding the topic, because you have some other things as well that you need to consider, that you need to practice on. So that is one. Number two is, when you look at this, once you have chosen the topic, the next is for you to, you know, reword your topic so that it becomes something, the moment people say it, let's say, like in my case, yeah, you know, tajuk dia apa tadi yang kat ni? This one, delivering killer presentation. So how this topic can actually help people to come and listen to my presentation, to come and listen to my sharing session, macam mana. So you need to reword, you know, maybe you have the topic cryptozoology, but just by putting the word, but then again, undeniably, I just have to say this based on my experience, sometimes you don't even need to put effort at all in rewording the topic. Sometimes some of the topics to itself dah memang orang kata can help you, yeah, to get the attention of the audience or the people, yeah, or the public. Macam for example, if you put the word cryptozoology, if let's say you don't really know what cryptozoology is, that will somehow arouse your interest. You will feel like macam, I think I want to come and watch and listen to this speech, because I don't really know what cryptozoology is. Nampak tak? So that person tak perlu pun, you know, susah payah lah, put a lot of efforts to come up with, you know, a killer sentence for a topic, contohnya, or a killer phrase for a topic. Not necessarily. But sometimes if let's say the topic is macam, it has been quite frequent that students use the same topic over and over again, particularly for us lecturers lah. In my case, for example, whenever I ask them to come up with a topic for informative speech, many of them will choose topics like diabetes. All right, those diseases lah. Sometimes, you know, there was this one time I told them, no more disease topic. I don't want. Daripada I tak ada perasaan ada penyakit, now I develop fear pula, because apparently when I listen to your speech, I noticed that the symptoms that you mentioned too, I have them, all of them. So am I, having that disease? I begin to pula jadi develop that fear pula. Right. So I told them no more disease topic. But then again, can't help it. Some of the topics can be quite down. So how do you change that? From that so topic, you still want to talk about it. Otherwise, sampai bila-bila, no one is going to talk about diabetes. No one is going to talk about cancer. All right. So just to share with you, another student of mine, I think many years ago, hotel management student, he wanted to do a topic about breast cancer. I guess that was the time when I told my students no more disease topics. I don't want anything that has to do with diseases, anything at all. So I told them tak ada lagi data ya. But he insisted. He said he wanted to do on breast cancer. So I told him, I said, dah benda ni dah pernah buat. I've listened to this for so many times, and it's going to be this. In fact, to a point that I can even memorize what are the points when people want to talk about breast cancer. But this is what he told me. He said that, but do you know the symptoms for male breast cancer? And that was the time that I was like, so you want to talk about male breast cancer? Yes, dia kata. So apparently the guys can also experience or can also suffer from breast cancer, not necessarily women. So I was like, okay. So that really aroused my curiosity. I really wanted to know back at that point, how do I have the symptoms, things like that. So memainkan peranan also when you can pick a little bit the topic, looking at a different perspective in order for you to come up with a quote and unquote killer phrase or sentence for your speech. Now another example that I would like to show or I would like to share with you. More examples that I'm sharing through number one, through examples, and also I think it's best for you to understand my sharing session if I provide more examples based on my experience lah. So when I first joined UITM, I remember back then my faculty was organizing a conference, an academic conference. So when I joined in, it was because I joined UITM towards the end of that year. They have been, they have been, managing the so-called or organizing it, for quite some times. And that particular year, when I joined in September. Was it September? September. And then masa tu pun, they have already at the final stage lah. That means they're about to have the so-called conference lah. So I remember, back then, it was a face-to-face conference. And then we had these few rooms lah, based on the themes, or topics, based on the themes. And then you can actually choose which room that you like to join, which room that you like to enter, so that if let's say you're interested in this topic, then you'll just go to that designated room lah, the one that mentioned dekat dia punya tu. Okay, there was this one room that I noticed a lot of participants. They joined. They went into that room, and I was like, well, there must be something interesting going on there or about to happen lah. So I went in and I looked at the. It was a big audience and many of them attended, compared to other groups or other rooms lah. And then I asked around, I said, why are you guys waiting for something? Dia kata, oh, okay, we are waiting for this one presentation. I said, what presentation is it? I don't know, but apparently the topic is very interesting. I said, what topic? What was the topic of that presentation? That is the topic, the one that I'm showing on my slide right now. The Toyota way. Okay, the Toyota way. I was actually part of the committee, and masa conference tengah berjalan, I was in charge of something else. But because I went into that room, and when someone told me that there's this one particular topic that they were about to present, and the topic is the Toyotawi. And somehow, I joined them lah. I joined the crowd to watch or to listen to that presentation, because I really wanted to know what that research was all about, the Toyotawi. And it was very interesting, because apparently they conducted a class with the Toyota workers in section 15 in Shah Alam. And then along the way, they also carried out a small-scale research with these people. And the outcomes of the research were, among them is they came up with this, it's not a framework, more like macam steps lah, or ways, for a person or any instructor or language instructor who wishes to, come up with a short course with the working people, right? So they come up with it's not a framework, it's more like a suggested steps and ways lah. If you follow those steps and ways, inshallah, you'll come up with a good module, something. So that was one of the outcomes of that so-called research, which is pretty interesting to me, if you ask me personally. So people, they waited for that particular presentation just because of the topic, the Toyotawi, because perhaps they were, anticipated something else, you're hoping for something else, or perhaps because there's the word Toyota in it. So choosing the right words, choosing how you word your topic plays an important role, and that can also lead to good presentation, all right, or well, yeah.
Israel.
Now we move on to speech writing introduction. So now speech writing, when we talk about how to write a speech, the first thing that we are going to look at is, of course, writing the introduction. Okay. Actually, there are many things that you need to include. Not that, of course, there are a few things that you have to include in your introduction. But what I have with me today is to only focus on the attention grabber. Okay. Now, attention grabber, bukan attention seeker, attention grabber. But I like this part, your opening will determine how long your audience will stay with you throughout the whole thing. Okay. So kalau let's say your opening, the first 5 minutes tu orang dah rasa bosan, that's it. Right? But not saying that you're doomed, but of course you begin to lose, the interest of your audience and so on and so forth. The one thing good, about doing this online is I cannot really see whether or not the students or my audience is actually really into this. They are really listening to my speech, or they're doing something else. Yeah. So at this point, all I can see on my screen is just my slides. So I'm hoping that everyone is actually looking at me, trying to listen to my speech or my presentation. Yeah. But in real life, if let's say you are going to have this, face-to-face speech or presentation, you'll get to see from their facial expressions, the way they portray their body gestures, the way they behave in that so-called room ke apa ke, you can see from there. You can actually have a rough idea on how they perceive your speech. Yeah. Okay, so there are many ways for us to begin to begin your speech in your introduction, choosing the right and correct attention grabber plays an important role for writing a good and effective speech. I always believe in that. Of course, there are a few other things that you may want to include in your introduction, like, revealing the topic, for example. Okay, maybe establish some sort of credibilities, for example, inform people, why you are choosing this topic, because like I mentioned just now, you like to talk about yoga. The reason why you choose yoga is because you are a yoga practitioner, for example. So that is the reason why. So people will feel, oh, okay, no wonder like she wants to talk about yoga because she's doing yoga. So people will feel macam somehow they develop trust in you lah when you deliver the speech. Okay, but I guess the most important part is because the first 5 minutes very important, because that tells you basically whether or not people still want to continue listening or watching your speech. Okay, so that is where you have to have your attention grabber. And how many attention grabbers should you have? One, the right one, and the most effective one. Kena dengan your topic. Bukan semua and also sometimes I notice the students start dengan quote lah, and then from one quote and then it brings you to a story lah. So macam-macam. So I told them, I said, oh, just choose one. And not all topics suit with all attention grabbers. Sometimes you just have to play around and look at which one that suits the most for your topic. Yeah. So many students will choose the first one, which is a quote, like what I did just now. I like to share quotes. Yeah. But don't simply share a quote that is, irrelevant to your topic. And I often experience that when students deliver their speech presentation. Yeah. Ni contoh je, contoh. Tapi it didn't happen in real life lah. For example, there's this, it can be a quote, it can be a proverb, it can be, an idiom, up to you lah, idiomatic expression ke. There's this one quote, yeah, you can bring a horse, sorry, it's not a quote, it's a proverb. You can bring a horse to a river, but you can never force the horse to drink the water in the river. More or less like that. So you like to begin with that. But then again, ask yourself, what does it mean? Okay, you can bring a horse to a river. So maybe, maybe it talks about how you can actually help a person to a certain extent. But at the end of the day, that depends on that person himself or herself in order to, to make some changes, all right, to be better. You can just guide them. You can tell them this is the right way of doing this. But at the end of the day, whether or not they want, that is entirely up to them, all right? So if you have that understanding, then that would be the, quote and unquote, the definition of that so-called proverb. So you begin with that quote or that proverb, right? Ladies and gentlemen, now let me just share with you. This is one of the ways of doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, you can bring a horse to a river, but you can never force the horse to drink the water in the river. Now, this brings me to my topic of today's speech, and that is cryptozoology. So people, audience will begin to wonder, Afsal, he was talking about bringing the horse to the net. So the topic is cryptozoology. And maybe you were, maybe your understanding is cryptozoology has to do with animals. I talk about horse just now, they are somewhat related. So I guess it works quote that way, not necessarily. And also don't assume, if you're not sure, one of the things later on, once you're done drafting your speech, you can just have someone else to look at your speech. Maybe these people will pick up things like this. Hey, I don't think your quote is relevant or your proverb is relevant to the topic. You're talking about cryptozoology. Your proverb is, I think, it's more like motivational kind of proverb or quote, which is not at all related with the topic. You may want to change to something else. So be extra careful. But to begin your speech with a quote can also be one of the attention grabbers. Yeah, one of the attention grabbers. So find the right quote. And also another thing that I would like to share with you, another tip is carilah quote a person yang quote that thing lah, that said that thing to someone yang famous lah. There was also this one time the student shared with me a quote and then bawah tu anonymous. Saya bukan apalah, I'm not skeptical about this anonymous punya quote ni, but it's so, I felt that macam a quote ni is something that inspirational lah, in a way of saying this, yeah. It has to be inspiring. So when people read the quote, they feel like, it has to be something that makes them stop and ponder, something that makes them think about the quote, about the, whatever the meaning of that quote, yeah. nak kata orang tu betul-betul terkenal that the whole wide world knows that person pun tak semestinya. But macam just now, if I don't explain who William Penn was, I don't think any of you kenal siapa William Penn tersebut. So I gave you like a bit of some background story about William Penn. I'll try to relate with Pennsylvania, stuff like that. Yeah. So maybe oh, Pennsylvania pernah dengar, All right. So that means at least you have some background story about this guy. And then now let us look at what he has to say about speech. So something like that, jangan cari someone yang memang tak kenal langsung, alright? And then or anonymous, you yourself pun tak tahu siapa orang tu, alright? So find lah someone yang ni. Tapi then again, some students may also argue, Mr. E, I said the same quote sahaja. When we talk about this topic, it will be this quote. So I want to try something else pula pun boleh, tak ada masalah. And always remember, speech is basically an agent for you to share knowledge. Yeah, and knowledge can be something that has already existed, can also be something that is new to your audience. All right. So kadang-kadang when benda tu dah wujud, tapi maybe yours is you are telling them what is the latest, then they will be updated. Can also be something that is new to your audience. This is their very first time dengar quote ni. This is my very first time dengar pasal William Penn. Oh, he's the founder. And I'm pretty sure some of you, the moment I mentioned about William Penn, ada dah start Google, you go and search about William Penn, and that somehow, triggered you to go, or it helps you to go and find more information about Pennsylvania. You see how knowledge is being transferred just because you talk, or just because you presented a quote to your audience, right? So that is the whole purpose. It becomes delivering a speech or a presentation. It has to be a knowledge transfer agent. Yeah, so always have that in mind. Yeah, so that is why when you are preparing your speech, you must also make sure that your content to recent, latest, and betul, they're all true. Tak ada yang you main-main, you create on your own and whatnot. Cannot be that way. Otherwise, nanti you'll be delivering something yang very not true to your audience. Yeah. Okay. Next, if let's say quote is too common, everyone is doing one quote. You like to be a little bit different. You can begin your introduction, or you can begin your speech.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Sorry. Right, you can also begin your speech with a story. All right. Now, the reason why you need to have attention grabbers, because I noticed that in any presentation, even sometimes when I had to deliver a speech, I often employ whatever strategies that I teach my students on how to deliver an effective speech. Yeah. For example, sometimes I use story. Okay, saya gunakan story to deliver or to begin my story and my speech. All right. So story can be one of your attention grabbers. Yeah. Kita buatlah, you start dengan story. But the story has to be in relation to your topic as well. All right. So you would like to talk about maybe this is just a sample for you. Yeah. Masuk diri 50 years ago. A woman went to see a doctor, and because she was not feeling well, and because of this, when she went to see the doctor, and then based on her diagnosis, the doctor informed her that she was suffering from certain disease, this and that. You're trying to tell a story about someone who was suffering of a disease or from a disease, and you would like to relate that story to your topic, which is about that disease as well, and how that disease has evolved over time, and then you wanted to talk about what is the latest, in curing that so-called disease and whatnot. So that is what we call a story that is in relation to the topic. Sometimes a lot of people, they like to share a story, but at the end of the day, dia pun tak tahu what the story is about. All right, what that story is about for the students, for the audience, ya. Dia pun tak tahu. Kadang-kadang ada pula there was this also one time a student, wanted to do this as the attention grabber. She chose this story, for her attention grabber. The story was left hanging. Sampai ada student kawan dia lah tanya at the end of the speech, because they thought that at the end of the towards the end of the topic, she would continue with that story, and that can also be one of the strategies as well. Sometimes you leave the story hanging because when you come to your conclusion, you would like to recap the story and you like to let them know, Earlier, just now, I told you about the story of this woman went to see the doctor, and you know what happened at the end of the day? So you're trying to wrap things up, and you're trying to come up with, you're trying to end your speech with the ending of that story, the one that you told in the beginning. That can also be one of the strategies, because people want to stay on so that they can listen to the story. But what happened to the student was the story was left hanging, and the audience, they waited for her to finish the speech because they wanted to know what actually happened to that person. And then after the speech, baru diberitahu. So too bad that she did not include that in her speech. That is one. Number two, you cannot leave the story hanging. Otherwise, how will people know, what the story is about? And I guess the most common mistake when it comes to story is, or telling story as your attention grabber, that your story lagi panjang than your introduction. Always remember, semua ni, the purpose of having this is just to get the attention, the 5 minutes attention from your audience. Itu je, just to hold that attention from your audience. It cannot be the center of your speech. It cannot be a speech within a speech, all right? Or it cannot be a big content within a big content, yeah? So this is a story. So it should be something that is short and nice, so that from that story, you bring whatever, the gist of that story to the topic of your speech. Then later on, you talk about, you reveal your thesis statements, dan sebagainya. Okay. If let's say you are the kind of person who likes number, then maybe you can also use some statistics if you want to. Now, a lot of people may think that statistics is maybe a bit boring, because it deals with numbers, but not necessarily. You can begin something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, I can say that 2 out of 3 of us in this classroom are potential murderers or murderers. Yeah? Semua macam, betul ke? Right? And according to a statistic, pun dia start cerita pasal statistik lah. Based on the statistics, this and that, it turns out of this number, out of this ratio, we'll get this number. And that is why I dare to say that 2 out of 3 of us are potential murderers in this room. Trying to relate with the topic that you're about to deliver, or the topic of the speech that you're about to deliver, by just arousing the curiosity of your audience, letting them know about the statistics or informing them about the statistics. So by just looking or by just listening to the statistics, people are going to say, oh my God, am I sitting next to a potential murderer here? Or am I one of the part of these statistics? We can never know. So that helps people to listen to your speech. Yeah. Other than statistics, rhetorical question. I like this one as well. All right. And in fact, if let's say you're running out of idea, you don't really have story. Oh, coming back to the story, ada juga tanya, is it okay if it is not a true story? Some made up story lah, Mr. E, as long as it is a story. Well, to me, kalau it is a true story, that would be good lah. Okay. Tapi if it's just a made up story pun tak apa. At the end of the day, the purpose of your attention grabber is just to grab the attention of your audience, itu je. Right? You just want to get the audience, tapi don't make it to a point that people will start to believe in that so-called story. Tak nak lah macam itu. Alright? Otherwise nanti, you are actually giving them something that is that is not true lah. All right, like false stories, false statements, false information. We don't want to actually we don't want to condone such things, yeah, when you're delivering, because always remember it is an agent of knowledge transfer, speech, or presentations or anything. But if let's say you're running out of story, you don't really have a story to tell, you're not the kind of person who like to tell stories, you're not a storyteller, you don't really like numbers, all right, you don't want to go and find statistics, or you couldn't find a quote because your topic kalau quote memang susah. You can always begin with a rhetorical question. Now, what is basically a rhetorical question? It's basically a question that is asked, but you're not required to answer. Okay, you don't ask a question and then you expect the audience to respond to you. Now, it can be a question like, have you ever imagined a day without internet? It's just a rhetorical question, just one question saja. And then you stop, maybe you let them, think about it, and then you move on with whatever that you are about to deliver. So that question does not require any answer, but the audience, basically, those who listen to your speech, they will answer by themselves. I mean, a day without internet. Oh, I cannot imagine myself a day without internet. Not only a day, just a minute or an hour without internet, or hour without internet pun jadi pening. Apa lagi a day without internet? You see, they are having that. They are actually talking to themselves. They are actually having that answers, but just they just keep to themselves. So that is a rhetorical question. You can begin with that, yeah, if you want to. Sometimes using a visual aid can also be a good attention grabber. Now, I would like to share with you, because I used to teach hotel management students before, so they are very creative when it comes to attention grabber. There was this one time, a student brought in a box, and then there was something moving in the box, but we were not sure what was it. So what did he do? He said that I would like to pass this box from one person to another, and I would like you to put in your hand, all right, and try to describe whatever that you feel. And then later, I'll ask you a question what that thing is, and then we'll try to see, based on descriptions given by these students. So that's how she or he, I cannot remember whether it was a he or a she, but that's how, let's just assume it's a he started his speech, by using a visual aid. So a visual aid not necessarily has to be your slides. It can be just anything. We'll talk about this later in a while. So he went around and give the box, ask the audience to pass the box, and then they started to put their hands in the box, and they start to guess lah. It's a bit fluffy, it's moving, I think it's an animal, and until sampai setengah lah, tak sampai habis pun. So he stopped and then he asked, okay, can you guess what is in the box? And then they began to give answers until they came to the right answer, and so happened it was a rabbit, just a small rabbit, in that box. Boleh je, tapi cuma itulah kadang-kadang when you put an animal in it kan, some people takut nanti diterbaling ke kotak tu ke kan, terkejut ke, and then jatuh kotak, mati pula rabbit tu kan. So yes, you can use your visual aid as your attention grabber, but because of that action or that so-called sharing that so-called visual aid because later after that he took out that rabbit, and then they letak in a cage where everyone can see, and then he was merely describing about the rabbit and what to feed, because I think the topic was about having a rabbit as a pet, something like that. Okay, but that was interesting. People were really, they were really careful. I'm so sorry. They were really paying attention to his speech, because after dah pegang-pegang rabbit tu, and then they really want, they nak stay on lah. They really want to watch the whole speech. Or can also be an action. All right, can also be an action. Maybe you can suddenly start to practice yoga, or you start to do the yoga moves, kan? and then or the routines ke, and then people begin to wonder, dia buat apa tu sebenarnya? Itu pun will arouse the curiosity of your audience. So always remember attention grabbers, attention grabber in your speech, it plays an important role. Trust me. If you have a good and effective attention grabber, the rest will just fall in easily. Trust me, people will just listen to your speech after that. Yeah, they will begin to listen to your speech or pay attention. All right. Okay. From attention grabber, there are a few other things that you may want to include in, but I'm not going to look into every details about attention. About your introduction. I just want to focus on your attention grabbers sahaja. Now, when we talk about content pula, the next question, and students like to ask this, or whoever that is doing that presentation, sometimes you have this in mind. How many is enough for a speech? Okay, let's just say you're going to talk about reasons of road accidents in Malaysia. Let me just use that as an example. So you want to talk about reasons of road accidents in Malaysia. There are many reasons. There are many reasons that you can talk about. So sometimes students have this difficulty in deciding how to actually organize my content. I mean, to what extent that we can actually talk about something, there are many reasons. When I do my internet search, apparently there are about 15 reasons of road accidents, only in Malaysia. We're not talking about worldwide, here in Malaysia. So we have like 15 reasons. So am I supposed to talk all 15 reasons for my speech? Or should I, put them into categories or put them into groups, So how do I actually organize? And also, can I just choose, only 3 out of that 15? And if yes, then how should I know which 3 that I should use? So these are the things, students like to ask when it comes to speech content. So this is what I can share with you, when it comes to writing the content of your speech or deciding what to talk about. Now, if you notice, a lot of this, coming back to that given example just now, reasons of road accidents, you notice that when you look closely at the reasons, you will realize that some of them, they are not redundant, but they come from the same group. All right, they come from the same group. So you may want to categorize them if you want to. All right. So the moment you put them into groups, then you will realize soon you have reduced from 50 reasons to perhaps maybe 6 or 7 groups of reasons. But still, it is, to me, I think it will be, too many reasons for you to have in your speech. So what should I do next, Mr. A? Next is for you to decide which of these 6 or 7 group of reasons that are most prominent. So that means maybe you choose 3. Okay. Sometimes you can go up to 4 if you want to, because although some lecturers or some people may suggest that why not we come up with like a 5-paragraph essay where you have your introduction and 3 content and also 1 conclusion. But always remember, you are delivering a speech, you're not writing an essay. So there is no such thing as, it has to be exactly 3 main points. But then again, given, because ELC590, we have rubrics that we have to adhere, we have to follow. So a lot of lecturers are suggesting that. But in real life, when you're delivering a speech, no one can say that, oh, you have to give like 3 points for your speech. Otherwise, you're not going to listen to your speech. No, not necessarily. That is entirely up to you. But few other considerations that you may want to count in, for example, time that is allocated for your speech. Because if you want to talk about all 15 reasons of road accidents, but then again, you're given like, half an hour to talk about that, I highly doubt that you can cover all 15 reasons. Even if you have put them into categories, you soon realize that half an hour is not enough for you to cover all 6 to 7 categories. So at the end of the day, it is you to decide, it is you to look back at those, coming back to the 7 or 6, let's just say 6 categories to choose the most prominent ones lah. Okay. It can be the first 3 lah, all right? Because the first 3 ni yang paling banyak sekali keluar. Contohnya, if you search reasons of road accidents, almost all websites will have these first three categories, contohnya. So maybe I can talk about it, all right? Because it is more common to the people, to the public, or whoever is listening to the audience, for example, and it'll be, you have access to the examples or supporting materials later on for your speech, all right? Otherwise, nanti you'll find hard time to find info, supporting materials, yeah, support your speech. Okay, so in deciding how many for your speech, number one, try to reduce the number by putting them into categories ke, or maybe kalau let's say tak boleh, then maybe you choose yang paling prominent, yang most common people will, when you talk about this, then dia kata dia dapatlah, okay, I think I know, yes, betul, because I have experienced this before, contoh, right? But then again, it is not the same as listing something. Always remember, content is where you need to elaborate, you need to explain, and then you need to give more examples. Tapi in your content, you can have like a list of something else as well. For example, you like to talk about factors that can cause heart disease in Malaysia, right? What are the reasons of heart disease in Malaysia? But in one of your reasons too, you are listing out symptoms. Janganlah yang symptoms pula you limit only the first three. I choose the first three because they are most prominent. No, listing something too is different. You can have like the whole list because you're not basically going, you're not going to explain every symptom. We're just letting us or the audience knows these are the symptoms. Itu je. So it's okay. It should be okay. All right. Jangan itu pun you pilih juga the most three yang paling popular ke, the most three yang very familiar to the tak payahlah. Okay, listing is okay, shouldn't be any problem. All right. So in answering this question, how many is enough? Okay, number one, all right, you may want to adhere certain rules, you may want to follow certain rules, or okay, if let's say you are asked to at least convey about 3 points, then you just follow that, because sometimes like in the case of ELC590, your speech is basically your assessment, so kena ikut lah. And number two, for you to consider also the time that is given for you. All right, so that's why when you draft a speech, ada yang tanya saya, I'm not really sure, because always remember, when you draft something and when you deliver something, they are not the same. When you read your draft, maybe it will take you less than 5 minutes because you're reading it. Okay, now you are delivering a speech. There will be a lot of other things that will come in. All right, your small pauses in between, and sometimes you have videos to show, or some clips, or maybe banyaklah benda, ada visual aids that you like to share, or attention grabber takes time. All right, so that is why delivering a speech and reading out a draft of a speech is not the same. So when you draft your speech and then you read out your speech too, you kata, oh okay, when I read this about 5 minutes here, or less than 5 minutes, so should be okay. No, not necessarily. Until when you deliver, you soon realize that you need more than 5 minutes. Okay, so another consideration is, of course, to think or to consider the time allocated for your speech as well. Yeah, but when you are drafting your speech, you can just add in as many content as you want. But when you are practicing it and then you realize that you have taken more than the time given, then maybe you may want to reduce some of your content. Kita reduce part yang content tu lah. So when you want to reduce tu lah, choose yang paling prominent one. Senang nanti bila you nak cerita, people can understand your speech better, right? Okay, and what is needed in just one content, for example, yeah? These are the 3 main things that you need to have. But of course, you can add in more lah, up to you. The first thing is for your main idea. All right, what is basically your main idea of that particular content? For example, if you're talking about reasons of road accidents, what is the first reason? So the first reason is basically the main idea of that paragraph lah. And then next, you need to elaborate, and then followed by some examples. These 3 things ni dia sekali. Macam apa tu? Yang rempah 3 sekawan tu. So they are together. You must have the main idea of that particular paragraph. Sometimes some people call it topic sentence lah, kan, in that particular paragraph. It's basically, it answers the question what this paragraph is all about. If this paragraph talks about the first reason, what is the first reason? Maybe reckless driver, contoh. So that would be your main idea, reckless driver. You elaborate on reckless driver, and then you give examples. Now, I always put an emphasis on giving examples, yeah? Now, why? Because a lot of us, maybe we neglect this part, the last part, which is giving, give more examples, yeah? I think, when you elaborate, sometimes, when we talk about, giving a speech or good presentation, language can be a barrier. So we may think that, we have come up with perfect sentences for our speech, but only to realize that we are the only person who understands, that so-called elaboration. So next is maybe by having examples or providing examples, it helps the audience to understand better about your point. It helps the audience to understand better about your point. So always remember, the audience, they are going to listen to you. All right, sometimes they may miss the elaboration part, but when they listen to your example, okay, now I understand better. All right. So goes back to the saya cakap tadi, an agent of knowledge transfer, yeah. We want them to understand. We don't want them to listen je. We want them to understand at the same time. Okay, and the writing for the ending of speech, yeah. Ni saya ambil lah sikit, crescendo ending ada, and then we also have dissolve ending, and you can actually apply this, yeah, whenever you are giving speech, even if it is not in English, yeah. Even kalau dalam bahasa Melayu pun, you can actually apply these skills or this methods. I don't call it methods lah, ways lah, or steps in writing good speech. Even in bahasa Melayu pun boleh juga. Okay, crescendo ni is basically where you build this so-called of like momentum, and then you end your speech. A lot of people, great speakers, they like to use, if they are very experienced ones, they will use this technique lah, right? You can actually Google a lot of bukan bermaksud jerit-jerit ke ditinggikan suara, not necessarily, yeah, but you can feel the momentum of that speech. And then kalau contohnya lah, if you watch this battle, yang rap battle tu kan, dia dah rap, semua tepuk tangan because the sentences lah, the rapping part tu lah, the words they use to very powerful. Drop the mic, lebih kurang macam tu lah, you drop the mic, crescendo ending ni lah. Tapi dissolve is the opposite. Okay, you can see slowly you're dissolving, yeah, and that also depends on the topic or the topics that you are delivering lah, or for the topic of your speech, yeah. Bukan semua, not every topic suits with crescendo or dissolve ending. So it has to, you really have to look into that lah, right? I think most of us will just go for dissolve ending, right? But if let's say you are a very experienced speaker, then perhaps you may want to, or you are kind of, as I mentioned earlier, adventurous. You like to explore. I've been doing dissolve ending for quite some time. Perhaps this is the time that I can explore on crescendo ending and have a look at it. Yeah, why not? Okay. Okay, now I'm moving to delivery pula. Okay. Let me check kalau ada soalan ke, tak ada, Alright, bagus. But if you have questions, you like to use the chat box, by all means, please. Now, a good speech delivery is, so this is a short story that I would like to share with you, yeah, shortly before the Civil War. All right, so this is a story about Phillips who went to, listen to a speech, all right, in Boston. I'm not going to read out for you lah, because you can read on your own. But the gist of this story is, these students went to watch or went to listen to a speech, right? And then when he was listening, I mean, basically the way that the person who presented or who delivered the speech, in an almost conversational style, okay, very orang kata laid back, very conversational style. Kalau you dengar pun macam macam seolah-olah di tengah berborak instead of delivering a speech. Yeah? And he stood on the platform, one hand lightly resting on the table, talked for what seemed to be about 20 minutes, and then concluded and sat down. When the student looked at his watch, he found to his astonishment that he had been listening for an hour and a half. Yeah? Nampak tak? So that is, I'm not saying that this is what makes a good speech a good speech. No, there are a few other factors also that we may want to consider what a good speech is. But the whole thing, the whole package is when you listen to a speech, you thought that you've been listening for 20 minutes. Tapi tengok macam, Ya Rabbi, almost 1 hour. Ya Rabbi, almost 1.5 hours. So that means you've been listening well to that speech to a point that you tak perasan pun sebenarnya you've been listening for that long. Yeah. So that's how I always believe in that lah. Tapi I'm not saying that just because your speech orang tak dengar ke ataupun it's not about tak sampai 1 jam, so mine is not that good. No, there are a few other things that kita consider juga lah. Alright, okay, so we'll start with the we'll talk about the speaker's voice too when you want to deliver your speech. Yeah. Number 1, volume. Now, volume is very important. Sometimes when we first had ODL, I thought that kalau pakai ODL, online ni, perhaps we can listen better, because undeniably some speakers, they have very soft voice. Yeah. So when they deliver the speech, you dengar tak dengar saja. Kalau before the pandemic, I can sometimes I had troubles listening to students yang ada soft voice. So I will ask them to project. Now, you need to increase the volume. You need to project your voice. Why? Because you must first understand this is not a dialogue between you with another person. This is you becomes the center of that so-called speech. And then you you deliver your speech to your audience. Yeah. So you need to project your voice. But of course, in most cases, we have the microphone to aid us, to help us with the voice projection. Right? Even now, also, if you are here with me, you could hear that I am actually projecting my voice, although I am using the microphone. And it's very important. And sometimes, when I want to put an emphasis on something, I will increase the volume. All right, because so that people, okay, so he wants to focus on something, he wants to emphasize on something, so on and so forth. Yeah. And then we also have pitch, we also have rate. That would be pitch ni, orang kata pitch you lari, kadang-kadang you termasuk you punya hit voice ke kan, ataupun you bercakap tu, kadang-kadang pitch lari lah, maksudnya tak kena lah dengan you punya ni cara bercakap gitu. Ada kadang-kadang bercakap termasuk hit voice tu kan, contohnya. Now, how that happens? Because kurang practice. Okay, so to be a good speaker also, or to deliver an effective presentation, you have to practice. Nanti saya masuk sedikit on that part. Yeah. Read. When you're nervous, you have the tendency of, number 1, if let's say you memorize your speech, you have the tendency of, reading, quote and unquote, your speech, and then the read will become faster, lagi laju, right? So this is where you really need to focus and control the read of your voice. Yeah. When we are nervous, we have that tendency, and that happens subconsciously, right, without you realizing it. So that is why practice will help you to control, your pacing. All right, when you're saying something, right, and there'll be parts that you just have to pause for a while, wait, and there are parts that you just really need to, move on, because you need to go or get yourself to the second point because time is running out, stuff like that. Okay. Vocal varieties. I like this part. Sometimes when you, for example, if let's say you are using a story for your attention grabber. Now, storytelling requires vocal varieties. Yeah. It requires you to, For example, if let's say that is going to be a ghost story, you cannot use this kind of voice when you want to tell, or when you want to talk about apa tu? Or when you want to tell that ghost story. Tak boleh. Ghost stories, it has to be, the voices, it has to be something like macam, it was at night, and then I heard something, you know, the sound of your voice too, suddenly you rendahkan, all right, the volume, and then you have this some trembles in your voice. People would listen to it and people say, oh, yelah, macam takutlah. They can feel, you know, the spooky of that so-called story. Okay, the so-called horror story lah you nak share too. So vocal variety so play and it plays an important role as well, yeah, for your speech. And then we have pronunciation. So to pronunciation means that to pronounce something correctly, but sometimes you can't help it because, you know, number one, maybe because you are second language users or second language learners, yeah. And number two, perhaps those are new words, right? So you're not comfortable pronouncing it. So again, it goes back to practice. Pauses macam mana pula? Pauses pun mesti ada. All right. Sometimes when I think it works hand in hand with rate lah. So if let's say you realize that you talk too fast, you need to so you need to have some pauses lah in between. Okay, so that, or maybe you realize that, you know, your audience is not basically paying attention to you anymore. So when you pause, people will like, hey, kenapa dia tak bercakap you want to get the attention back from your audience, yeah. Dialect, all right, if you want to, boleh. Kalau let's say I think short stories ke, all right, adalah kadang-kadang dialect. Articulation as well, yeah. So this whole thing falls under speaker's voice. All right, what about body movement? All right, okay, first let us talk about personal appearance first. Okay, now as much as this is, you know, giving a speech, sometimes some people feel that what about our attires, what about our appearance? As long as you look good in the eyes of your audience, then it should be okay. All right, you look presentable, you look neat, you look like someone who is about to give a speech. Okay, because always remember, eyes will be on you. All right, eyes will be on you. So you need to present yourself, particularly when talk about personal appearance. Now, let me just remind you, and hopefully that this also can be a good reminder for your final speech, ELC590 students, yeah. I offer last semester a lot of students, just because we're doing it online, you are actually doing your presentation maybe at the comfort of your your room, for example, yeah, and you feel that okay, je kok pakai hoodies contohnya. Sometimes, you know, that gives an impression, but especially or particularly to your class lecturer lah. If I happen to be your class lecturer, I'll be wondering like, you dah tak ada baju lain ke nak kena pakai, you know. But then again, there are cases where students purposely wear that attires because it has to do with the speech pun ada juga. There was this one time a student wanted to talk about only informative speech, memang banyak lah. I received a lot of things, you know, creativities lah, infrastruktur idea. There was this one time student wanted to talk about black, the color black. So she wore the whole black, from top to bottom, semua black, right? And I thought that she wanted, I don't know, maybe masa tu saya fikir, tengah bergabung ke, maybe she's mourning someone's, you know, in the family ke, passed away ke, apa ke. And there was also another case, a student, she wore, she put on lipsticks, yeah, but very bright lipstick. Sampai, you know, because she was like sitting quite near to me masa tu dalam kelas. And when I was actually looking at somebody else presenting, but my eyes tu memang tak dapat lari daripada terlihat bibir dia tu, ya, yang dengan lipstick yang menyelah. And I was this close to give like a, you know, not a remark lah, more like a comment to her. saying that sometimes you just have to, you can tahu dress appropriately for your speech. All right, just because you are delivering a speech and I ask you to really look into your appearance, your attires and whatnot, not necessarily, or that does not mean that you have to wear, lipsticks macam tu. But it turns out she purposely put on that lipstick because she wanted to talk about lipsticks, informative speech. So if it has a purpose as to why you're using that, you're wearing that, for your attires, then go ahead. Otherwise, just make sure that you look neat in front of your audience. Yeah. Next is movement. Body gestures lah. Gestures, movement, body movements. When we talk about delivering a speech, there were cases also, some students, they like to go around the class. Suka berjalan. Possibly stay put. If you need to walk pun, maybe just to get the attention of your audience, bolehlah you walk back and forth. Ya, bolehlah ke depan sikit, ke belakang sikit. Or side to side pun boleh juga. But not too frequent. Otherwise, instead of getting the attention of your audience, it becomes a distraction to the audience, right? Because the audience, they have to look because they really want to look at you. But if you keep moving, then they have like to shift their body. They also have to move so that their eyes can be on you, all right? So we don't want that. But movement is allowed, and that also depends, yeah? Body gestures, pergerakan badan but if let's say you're doing it online, so make sure when you place, your web camera, your lecturer is able to view you. They can see the movement of your hands, all right? Other students, I don't know how, there were adalah even up until now pun whenever but then again, only masa presentation tu saja, I told them, I said, my students lah, ada yang pandang kat kamera sini. No, we look them, dia tengok kamera lain, tapi yang kamera yang duk suluh kat dia tu is another angle, at another angle. But the one that we are looking at them tu is the one that is actually, showing at another angle. So if let's say this is your camera, this is your webcam, make sure that you're looking at this webcam as how you're looking at me right now. This is how I'm looking at you. Can you see? So be very particular when it comes to this as well. The reason why is because your class lecturers also need to assess your body language. They would like to look at your facial expressions. When you make sure that you are situated not too close to the camera, not too far from the camera. And that has to be just enough. And you can actually try things out, depending on the platform used by your class lecturer. If let's say your class lecturer is using Zoom, I'm pretty sure by now you have your Zoom desktop version. You can actually buka lah satu and then tengok dekat kamera tu, how do you appear in front of the camera. That requires, number one, practice and preparing for your speech. Yeah. All right, and also eye contact. Now, eye contact, of course, you have to look at the camera. And right now, I don't think I develop any perasaan, stage fright or I have no problem lah kalau doing it online because I don't really see you. But if let's say you are delivering your speech in front of your audience, in a room, for example, I think about 2 weeks ago, I had to deliver a course with these employees of Lembaga Getah Malaysia, LGM. It was an English course, and that was after so many years, after 2 years lah, because of the pandemic. So that was my first time having this so-called physical class lah with the students. But the students are all employees of LGM, Lembaga Getah Malaysia. So tiba-tiba rasa nervous masa tu. And also eye contact masa tu, I was like, then I told myself, I said, never mind, calm yourself down, right? These are all your students, right? You are the class lecturer, although some of them, they look very old, much senior than you, but it's okay, more senior than you, but it's okay, right? Because you're the one in charge. Things that, I told myself before I begin the session. And coming back to my eye contact too, if let's say this is a physical speech or you are actually, giving a speech, having your audience right in front of you. Now, you need to have eye contact with your audience, of course. Yeah? A lot of us, and sometimes I often hear this, people say that if you're nervous or you have stage fright, don't look at your audience, just look somewhere else. Boleh lah, tapi kalau you've been staring at one corner for a very long time, not looking at your audience might think that, alamak, dia nampak benda yang kita tak nampak ke kat belakang tu, you know, stuff like that. Or maybe you can stare at your audience, not stare, you can actually have eye contact with your audience, yeah. But make sure that your eye contact too, it's scattered, you know, don't just focus on one person or that person saja or that person, yeah. Sometimes some speakers, they are like that, betul tak? The moment you keep on nodding and then you agree and then you look like you are focusing on his speech, and then dia kata, oh bagus lah, audience ni, okay, I'll just look at her and her alone for the entire speech. Don't be that kind of speaker, alright? Otherwise nanti you punya yang penonton tu nanti rasa takut, alright? So make sure that your eyes are scattered on everyone in that room. For example, you need to have eye contact with your audience, because that tells something to your audience, and that is the moment you have your eyes with them, it tells, you know, something like it creates an impression sebenarnya, so that your audience will feel safe. If they feel that you are the right person to deliver this, you are the, you know, you're the center of this so-called occasion. So we are looking at you, you're looking back at us, we can see, you know, some sort of like a reciprocal punya connection kat situ, right? So this is the thing that we want to establish. Okay. Nah, suara pun dah hilang sikit. Tapi tak apa, kejap lagi saya minum. Okay, anticipate Q&A, all right? But I'm not really sure, you know, but in any speech, all right, Q&A too is something that we normally have towards the end of the speech. But then again, you can also be a flexible speaker. Some speakers, they would want their audience to, if let's say they have things to ask, just stop me, don't wait until the end. Otherwise, I lupa, you pun lupa, all right? So if let's say you have questions, you ask me now. Or some speakers would prefer to have the Q&A towards the end. Well, that depends on you. But most of the time, it will be at the end of the session, yeah, when you have Q&A. But I'm not really sure about the speeches you're doing for ELC590. Can't remember if they still have that item for Q&A, yeah? All right, if they do, then you just have to anticipate questions from your audience lah. Now, how to go through that Q&A session? Number one, if you are asked with questions, approach questions with a positive attitude. All right. So you don't, are you sure you want to ask me that question? Huh? Degree student ask that question. Nampak tak? Very negative. Kadang-kadang ada kan? Alright, ada. Yang jenis that person or the speaker establishes this some sort of like negativities lah, when you ask that question to him or to her. Alright, are you sure you really want to ask that question? Are you sure you are doing degree asking that kind of question? Instead, you approach the questions with positive attitude. Thank you so much, sir, for your lovely question. That is very interesting. I would love to answer your question. All right, so here's my reply. That's how positive you should be, or at least you should appear in front of your audience. Next is listen carefully and let the audience, or let that person finishes his or her question. I sometimes experience when I ask things to a person, tak habis lagi, you know. For example, all right, I have a question here. I would like to ask, when you mention about answering audience questions, you have to be particular about the content. And when you say, belum sempat habis, dia dengar je particular about the content. All right, okay, I think I know what your question is. Thank you so much. You can sit, I'm going to answer your question. You pun macam, nampak tak? You pun tak habiskan. And then you pun terpaksa duduk. Now what happens next is, perhaps there's a possibility you thought you knew what the question was, but it turned out you gave an answer that didn't even address the question in the first place. So as a speaker, listen to the question and let that person finishes his or her question. Then baru you address or you reply. And then moving on, direct answer to the entire audience. Thank you so much, Mrs. So-and-so. The lady in pink. Thank you so much. Lovely question. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about this, you see, first you thank that person, and then once you are done, then you address that question to the whole audience. Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the question from the lady in pink just now. All right, she asked about this. Now, this is how you. So you janganlah fokus kat dia je. Oh, thank you so much for your question. Now, your question focus. And then the two of you pula keluar terus seperti dewan. Orang ni tepi pinga. What is happening? Right? Contoh. This is just an example. Now, be honest and straightforward. Honest one thing. If you don't know how to answer that, then just inform that person. I'm so sorry. I'm afraid this is, I don't really have the answer right now. Perhaps you don't have the answer right now. You have to do some research, maybe ask around. So I'll get back to you. Perhaps if you can leave me your contact number, all right, I'll contact you later on and inform you, or you have my email. Perhaps you can email to me the same question, and maybe I can go around and ask for the answers. So, you'll get your answers. And straightforward, okay? The person asks, Mr. Eve, when you talk about visual aids, do we consider ourselves as a visual aid? All right, good question. Thank you so much, Mr. So-and-so. You can sit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before I talk about visual aids or a person can be a visual aid, now let us go back to 1,000 years ago when human beings, jawab jelas soalan dia terus. I think the question is more like yes or no answer, I mean, the answer that you should be providing, like yes or no to yes, you yourself can be a visual aid. And how is that? Let me just give you an example. Give that example. I hope I have answered your question. Next. Ini tak nak bawa pula flashback 1,000 years ago lah, apalah. And last but not least, stay on track. Now, stay on track means what? If let's say you have you are addressing that question, just prepare the answer for that question. Sometimes I realize that when people are giving answers, they will have stories within that so-called answers. They will say something like, okay, itulah macam like yesterday I went to watch Mat Kilau, and then after a while, why did I talk about this? I was supposed to answer your question. What was your question again? Can you see? So that plays an important role as well. Yeah. So stay on track. The person asks that question, know what the question is, prepare the answer, jawab, then move on to the next person. Simple as that. Ya. Nanti kita tengok mesti macam mana dia jawab soalan. Kalau ada soalan lah. Okay. Alright. Hold on. Okay. Speech writing. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have until what time, yeah, by the way?
Actually, it's until 4 p.m. But you can...
Oh, I'm so sorry. Nampak type management. Baru nak masuk ni. I'm so sorry. Alright. Okay. I'll try to speed things up. Yeah. Basically, this is the all in all lah that I have with me. All right. We have covered voice, body language, visual aids. I tak cover lagi lah. Tapi visual aids is something that you also need to prepare. Now, the one thing that I can talk about visual aid is when you have your visual aid for your presentation, always remember this: you are the center of your speech, not your visual aid. Remember that. Okay, you are the center, but not your visual aid. Often I see students, bila they deliver the speech, they use the slide. Suddenly, the focus is now on the slides, not on you. You are presenting something. You are the presenter, not the slides. Nama pun visual aids means that they are to aid your presentation. They should not be the center. They should not be the focus of your presentation. Number one. And please go and read about visual aids, and you will come across there are a lot of things that you can actually use for your visual aids. Bukan slide semata-mata. A lot of us, what we have in mind, visual aid, slide, visual aid. No. Even you yourself can be a visual aid. For example, yoga practitioner, remember? So you practice yoga. Now you're going to show to them the movements in doing yoga. Okay, the first one like this. So you become the visual aid. Pun boleh. Okay, technology, now that most, because of the pandemic and ODL, these are the things that you may want to prepare for your speech, your delivery of your speech. Three things lah, okay, when we talk about technology. Number one, web camera, make sure it's functioning. Number two, microphone, make sure it's also working. And the third one is the speakers, make sure they are also working well. All right, they are all in good condition. Okay, and get yourself familiar with online platforms. All right, sometimes, for example, you are so used with Zoom, but suddenly you're using WebEx. All right, try to be flexible and adaptive at the same time. So go and explore. Yeah? If you can create a TikTok account, I'm pretty sure, you know, managing or navigating your slide using WebEx or Zoom should be okay. Time management, ini dah lari pula. I'm so sorry, kejap sikit je. Patut cerita pasal time management. If let's say you're given 1 hour, like in my case, stick with that 1 hour. Try not to exceed the time because sometimes people have other things to do. Yeah. Okay. Stage fright. How to overcome stage fright? You can just Google and find a lot of information. Actually, when you talk about stage fright, because that depends on you and how do you control yourself on the stage. All right, when we talk about the, even I could see also some students are facing or experiencing this even when doing this presentation online. So how to overcome this? Number one, practice. Always remember, if you don't practice, you cannot overcome your stage fright. Number two, there are a few other techniques or exercises or maybe routines that you can actually practice in order to overcome. Some people told me that when you eat chocolate, that helps you to calm down. If that helps, then eat chocolate lah. Okay, before you present your speech, for example. Yeah. And Q&A kita dah cover, you anticipate Q&A. Some people are talking about stage fright, ada cakap, you know, the Muslims, they like to recite certain prayers, they like to recite salawat before they begin. If that helps, then go ahead. Whatever that helps you to calm yourself down. But in my case, if you ask my experience, I always tell myself this: you are actually the authority here. You know, this is your arena. You are the authority. People are actually depending on you. You are the, macam cakap lah kita seolah-olah berkuasa kat sini. Because I remember there was this one time I watched this interview. And then when an interview between, you know, an interview with a singer lah. I can't remember siapa singer atau penyanyi tu. So when she was asked question, how did she handle stage fright? Okay, so this is what she said. Dia kata whenever she's on the stage, she always she felt that as if, you know, I am the one who has, you know, I am the one who has good voice here. You are here to listen to my good voice, my beautiful, nice, soothing voice. So you don't know how to sing. I know how to sing and I know how to sing well. So that is how dia macam psycho diri dia sikit lah. Okay. So I adapt that kind of technique to myself. I too are here to listen to you, Ilyas. Okay, they are here to listen. They are here to learn from you about this. So that is how I do it. Yeah. Okay. All right, Ajak, we have few. Okay, I have few other tips kat sini all in all before I go to your questions. Yeah. I just go through very briefly, yeah, because some of the points here I have mentioned before. Know what to deliver. Now, this is very important. Always remember, when you're delivering something, when you're presenting something, you are the so-called expert. In the case, people are there to listen to your speech. So you must, orang kata pengetahuan tu you mesti lebih lah daripada orang lain. That means do a good research, yeah, for your topic. And then is short and sweet, okay, within the time given. Tu pun cerita tadi pasal visual aids, using them effectively. And then know who your audience is, okay. right? If let's say your friends are going to be your audience, then you know them well. But if let's say you are delivering a speech, kat luar, get to know your audience, all right? Just get to know them, try to get some background stories of these people who are listening to you. So why? Because sometimes when you give examples, it will be best if you can come up with examples that suit with them, you know, that suit them lah, yang kena dengan diorang, so that you can understand better about whatever you are delivering, yeah. And then good delivery, all right, use simple, nice, understandable word. Avoid emotional lah, don't be too emotional. You begin with a short story, emotional story, tapi you pula yang menangis. Orang macam, kenapa dia menangis? Tengok satu, mana-mana boleh saya jawab dulu. Okay, Nicholas asks, if in case we are unable to answer the audience question, we are just blank, what do we do? Okay, as I mentioned to you just now, if you are not sure about the answer, or maybe you don't know, so be on kata, just let that person, I'm so sorry, I don't really have the answer with me. Because always remember, although you are the expert of the topic, just for that particular topic saja. You are not Mr. or Miss or Mrs. Know-it-all, yeah. So we all have limitations. If you don't know, then be truthful and inform that person. I'm afraid I don't really have the answer. But if the person insists, then you can get the answer or whatever that they wanted to know lah. Okay, all right. But don't stare and then, you know, have that awkward moment of silence, yeah. Jangan. So you just let them know. If you don't know, then you just tell them you're not sure. All right. Okay. Do you have any advice on what should we do if we suddenly forget some point to be delivered and nervous during speech? Okay. Now, some of us, we practice with cue cards. It's very important for you to have cue cards, yeah. But I'm pretty sure that sometimes you use your slides to assist you. So the points that you have on the slides will help you to recall back whatever that you're about to see. Otherwise, what you can do is maybe you can play around, you know, with the points, all right? But just make sure that it gets to what you have planned to deliver in your speech. Janganlah come up with something new. Yang ni nanti dia akan jadi impromptu a little bit lah, okay? It will be impromptu. But if let's say you really want to avoid this situation, practice. I just have to say this, yeah. We were not born as good speakers, all of us, yeah. Kita semua lahir biasa saja, which requires you to practice. So a lot of students, besok presentation, hari ni baru nak practice. That will not help. Trust me, that will not help. Because when it comes to communication, when it comes to, you know, spoken punya skills ni, you really have to practice from the beginning, all right? Because it requires some sort of like, you know, pergerakan mulut, betul tak? So you really have to practice a lot, yeah? Okay, and then, okay, Faiz, is it okay if the speaker use the normal or just straightforward? Yeah, it's okay. Again, you're not here to impress, remember the quote? You're not here to impress, but you're here to make people to understand. What's the point of using bombastic word? You nak dengar pun tak faham apa you nak cakap. You yang pakai bombastic word pun, you're not sure whether that is the right word to be used. So to me, short and sweet. All right. As long as people are able to understand the content of your speech, that would be good enough. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Imran, I want to ask about the content. If we're going to state one of the research that we found into our speech, how we're going to put citation. Okay, always remember, when you deliver a speech, this is not you reading out your academic research. So they are not, you don't say according to tak. It can be a little bit different than the one that you used to have in an academic writing. I like this question. Instead of saying that according to Elias 2022, for example, you can change something else. If let's say that reference is actually a book, so you can see something like according to a book entitled this, written by a very famous writer, and apparently just a bit background story about the writer. Now in his book, he talks about, you see, the way you deliver your speech, dia bukan academic sangat. That means it has to be the right in-text citation. No, this is not academic writing. This is speech. All right, so you can use different methods or ways of presenting, or if it is a research, there was a research done before, by a group of researchers in New Zealand, where they talk about this. You see, a very casual, like Ken, you don't really make it sound too academic, yeah? All right. Okay, my name, all right. I want to ask a question based on your experience, either accuracy or fluency. Which one is the most important? Okay, if you're talking about these two, which one is most important, then I would go for accuracy lah. All right, instead of fluency. No point of you cakap fluently, but they're not accurate. Yeah. Tapi if we can have both work hand in hand, that would be better. All right. But preferably, have both lah in your speech. Right. Try to be fluent, accurate and fluent at the same time. Okay, ada lagi soalan? Oh, banyak soalan. Sorry, take your time pula. Okay, we are still in online distance learning. So which more important, either context or delivery? Both, my dear. That's why, as you can see now, the focus of my sharing session today is dua-dua. I'm looking a bit at speech writing. I'm also looking a bit at delivery, because a good speech presentation, or a good speech or a good presentation requires both. All right. Oh, sorry. Is it context or delivery? All right. You're talking about context as in content lah, kot, kan? So both are very much important. Yeah. Okay. Your present. How do you prepare what you're going to deliver in the presentation? You revise the points or practice some phrases or both? Yes, Khairina. Not only that, even when people say that you okay lah, you even just now when I was with my friends, I told them, I say, hey, I'm sorry, at 3 o'clock I have something, I have this sharing session with ITM Negeri 9 about speech and whatnot, and they say, tak payah practice, you dah okay dah, you selalu je keluar, you selalu je buat speech lah jadi MC. As much as I have experienced, similar things like this, delivering a speech, sharing sessions and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I am the kind of person that I like to prepare myself whenever I have this, sharing session, webinars, with even my lecture, yang hari-hari yang saya ajar, and also I've been teaching that code for quite some times. I always prepare myself beforehand. Yeah, like just now in my car, I was like rehearsing, thinking of the points that I have just created and whatnot. Yeah, right. You must always practice. Okay, or practice some phrases or both. Yeah, both phrases, points, everything. All right, but to have everything, susah juga lah. So that's this one part I forgot to inform you just now. Sometimes it's good for you to discover what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. Now, if you're good, some people, they are good in writing. So that's why in drafting a speech, they're okay drafting the speech. But when it comes to delivery, it's a bit off, because it requires you to speak, to talk and whatnot. Some people, they can really deliver something, but when it comes to creating the content, jadi masalah sikit. Okay, first and foremost, identify what is your strength. If let's say your strength is in, creating the content of the speech, then perhaps you can focus more on the delivery. All right. But if let's say you're the kind of person you can actually deliver, even people give you one topic pun, impromptu pun, you can deliver. But then again, when it comes to content lah, so you do something about your content, which requires you to read more, all right, so that you dapat lagi idea on how to write better, look at samples of speeches that helps you to think, or that helps you to write better. You do that practice lah. So find your strengths and weaknesses, okay, identify them, and then look at. That's why I'm looking at these two only, because of course there are a few other things that we can also include in when we talk about killer presentation, killer speech. But I always feel that these two are very important. They are very significant. Yeah. Okay. What lagi soalan? Okay. Awang. All right, Awang. Okay, some people, they have mild anxiety, tend to get started in every speech. Okay, all right, presentation, even though do you have your own issue to overcome this? Okay, well, yeah, undeniably, we all have that stage fright too. So what I normally do is, macam dia ada lah, when I had that so-called session dengan LGM students tu, Lembaga Getah Malaysia tu, that was my first time after 2 years, not after 2 years of ODL. That was my first physical class with my students. All right, so I was like macam nervous pun ada, although people say that, you dah mengajar lama kot, you dah mengajar more than 10 years. But then again, like it or not, we are all normal human beings. Okay, we experience this. All right, so how do I overcome this? Banyaklah benda yang I practice. For example, I keep on telling myself, they are here to learn from you. If you're nervous, then imagine how nervous they are. And sometimes, in order to transfer, quote and unquote, I am the only one who is nervous or experiencing this stage fright, contohnya. I want everyone else in this room to feel the same thing. So sometimes I ask them to stand and come forward with me in front, contohnya lah, introduce yourself, or I go to their places, to their seatings, and I ask them questions. That's how I overcome that lah. And it's good that if, let's say, you have a small audience, like in the case of my students were about, I think, less than 15, so I get to know them. That is one of the ways that you can actually practice. But if you're talking about big audience, then perhaps takkan lah be seorang-seorang bertanya, but you can just pick few. All right, just pick few, just so that you can get yourself comfortable. But then again, sometimes can't help it if, let's say, you crack some jokes, but audience ada yang tak ketawa, you seorang je ketawa. Kadang you crack jokes, saya pun sama. When I crack jokes dengan student saya pun, I know it was funny, but then again, students tak faham lah, and I had to tell them that was a joke. Then they laugh, and they laugh because I had to tell them that was a joke, not because of the joke. And that happens. Sometimes you can have tough crowd, tapi then again, can't help it. But you soon realize that as a speaker, you need to be adaptive as well. All right, the moment you see, and also you need to learn strategies. All right, you have to have few strategies. Don't just focus on one strategy. If, let's say, you have a tough crowd, so how do you handle this, for example? Yeah, okay. Tapi that's how I overcome lah. Whenever I feel nervous or I experience stage fright, then I just sometimes I like to transfer lah my nervous to. I say, okay, not only me, everyone else also have to feel this. And sometimes when I crack jokes and they begin to laugh, then I know, okay, this is going to be not a tough crowd. This is going to be a good one. So I make more jokes so that we laugh together, and then that is when slowly I reduce that so-called anxiety lah. Okay, I want to ask, do you have any tips on how to memorize the speech? Okay, I guess because I don't really memorize my speech. I don't memorize my speech. I just remember the points. I remember how I elaborated the points and what are the examples. Because I always believe this, if I listen to somebody else's speech, if the speech sounds natural in a very conversational, natural manner, I have the tendency of listening to it attentively rather than the one yang memorize, baca to a point that you pun, mana tadi tak perasan. It becomes, sometimes when you memorize, you focus too much on your memorization too, or on the things that you have memorized, to a point that you disregard the rest of the, your delivery parts lah. For example, your voice, your intonation, this and that. Yeah. So to me, that's how I do it. I remember, but then again, when I drafted my speech, kan memang draft lah macam kita buat essay tu, not points, I draft. But as I drafted my speech too, I try to remember the way I wrote my speech, and then that helps me, that helps me. Saya buat macam itulah. Tapi kalau let's say in a presentation manner like this one, normally I don't memorize a speech. Tapi if let's say I have to deliver a speech, that's how I do it. So I remember balik macam mana saya tulis speech tersebut. Okay. But different people, they have different strategies lah. All right. Okay. Controversial topics such as religion, abortion, can the presenter appear knowledgeable at all costs? Controversial for a reason, and the audience might feel that the conclusion is unsatisfactory. Now, when we talk about number one, choosing controversial topics, ataupun taboo topics lah. For example, sex education in Malaysia. Now, sometimes I also assist, new lecturers, and I told them, they said, some students, they came to me and they said, is it okay for me to talk about this? I said, when you look at, because at the end of the day, what we want is to give and to allow, or to give freedom to the students. So we don't want the students to think that we are too rigid when it comes to these topics. Yeah. What I normally do is I'll look at what angle, in what context you're looking at this issue. All right. So as long as I think it's acceptable and within our norms, then I will allow it. Okay, I will allow it. And also, when talking about topics that you are not experts of, what you can do is maybe you can just say, when people are asking questions or you're delivering your speech, try to elaborate. Maybe the style could be something like giving an opinion. All right, more like giving opinions lah. Even if you're answering questions, but when people ask questions, I'm so sorry, I'm not an expert. However, looking at your question, in my opinion, what we can do is macam itu, right? You can, all right. Okay, so I guess we stop here. Let me stop sharing. Stop sharing.
Thank you, Mr. E, for answering the
All right.
question.
So these are the questions. So back to you, our moderator, Asha. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. E, for answering the questions. Last question from Shamin Lukman from YouTube Live. Sir, if we bring jokes related to our speech, it is still considered as attention grabber?
Oh, yes, absolutely. But the one thing that you need to know about, cracking jokes ni kan, kadang-kadang lah, we think we are funny, but you nak tahu sama ada you are a funny person ke ataupun you are not a funny person ke, you ask your friends lah. Sometimes kadang-kadang kita ni punya confidence jokes, lack of telling jokes like ni, attention getter or attention grabber for your speech. Yeah, people or the audience may not laugh with you. They may not understand your joke. Yeah, so make sure that either you really have or you have the talent in telling the jokes, ataupun the jokes too, they are easily understood. Okay, because sometimes language barrier pun can also becomes a reason why people don't really quite understand joke sebenarnya, alright? Tapi yes, that can be an attention getter or grabber for your speech. Okay, anything else?
No, that's it. Okay, thank you, Mr. E, for the answer. A brief summary from his session is that while writing a speech, we need to use a topic that we are interested and comfortable with. Don't use same topics over and over. But if we still want to, we need to look at different perspectives about the topic that we choose. Next, we also need to use a great introduction by using the attention grabbers such as quote, statistic, and story so that the audience get the 5 minutes attention from the audience and stays through our presentation. In addition, we should use the best and effective skills when delivering the speech such as body language, voice control, and visual aids to give an impactful presentation to the audience. Okay, now for the photo session, we would like to everyone to open your camera.
All right, students, please open your camera. We'll have photo session. Okay, grab your tudung whatsoever. Put on some lipstick. Okay, I'll just take whoever has opened their camera. Okay, all right. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3, smile. All right. Thank you. Thank you, students, and thank you, Mr. Ilyas.
Thank you,
Ladies
sis.
and gentlemen, finally we have come to the end of our session. I would like to extend our gratitude to the Mr. E for the informative and interesting talk. And we would also like to thank the audience for the active participation. Hopefully the presentation will be beneficial for everybody. Thank you once again and goodbye.
All right, thank you. Goodbye. Assalamualaikum. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much. So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
all right, students of ELC590, do not forget to fill in the attendance and feedback form. All right, it's in the chat box. Also to all students on YouTube Live. All right, don't forget to fill in the attendance form. Right, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Asha. Thank you, everyone.
Yep,
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Miss Mela. Thank you, Medi Silva.
Thank you, Mida.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Asha. You did well.
Always.
Dah boleh keluar dah, Bella.